Working with quantiles can provide a lot of insights. They're very clean. They transport well from one distribution or data set to another in terms of just what their meaning is. They're quite advantageous to work with. Now, that having been said, if you're working in Microsoft Excel or you're working in Google Sheets, there's not like a really ready formula for all of your quantiles. You've got one for the median, which is a quantile, and you've got one for quartiles. That's lovely, but if you want to work with anything else like terciles or sextiles or quintiles or deciles or percentiles, you're going to need something different. And we're going to show you how to do that. We're going to work with actual data, and it's data that we found on Wikipedia. We'd like to show you where you can go to see it for yourself. On Wikipedia, list of countries with highest military expenditures. This data was compiled by Stockholm International Peace Research Institute, and what it captures is the 40 countries with the highest military spending worldwide in the year 2023, according to their database. There are two ways to think about this top military spending. One is by the raw US dollar amount, as it were. How much money did you spend? And then the other way of looking at it is what percentage of your total national output did you as a nation commit to national defense? So both of these are important ways of thinking about this question. We could go about asking either one of these. Now, we're going to do raw spending because it's probably a little easier for you to stick with us through that. We have purposely ranked by GDP or by national output. And in 2023, perhaps unsurprisingly, Ukraine comes up as the top spender as a percentage of its economy. So 37% of all of its economic output is committed in the year 2023 to national defense. The next closest nation, just for reference, is Algeria at 8.2%. So we see what a huge percentage that outlay is. But we're going to work with raw US dollar spending. So this is in billions, so 64.8 billion US dollars on national defense for the year 2023. Okay. Well, here we have assembled for you the quantiles of choice. So you might want to work in the bottom half and the top half, terciles, so break your data into equal groups of 3, or quartiles, equal groups of 4, etc. The pattern that you want to recognize right off the bat is that the number of dividing rods you need is always one less than the number of groups that you want. So if you want 5 groups, then you need 4 dividing rods. If you want 10 groups, then you need 9 dividing rods. And we get a sense of that with deciles. We've got 10th, 20th, 30th, 40th, 50th, 60th, 70th, 80th, 90th deciles. I have not been sloppy here. I have purposely put some of these values in percentage terms and others in decimal form, and I did that just to show you that you can go either or. Now, I'm going to give you a big tip. We're going to go with raw spending, and when it comes to calculating these various deciles or quantiles, whatever we want, we would prefer to not have to constantly be putting in like $E, $7, $E, $46 again and again. That would be a pain in the butt. So we can name ranges. I'm going to highlight these values, and when I've highlighted them, I'm going to head on up to Data, and it says Named Ranges over here, and I can call this range whatever I want. Now, I've actually already named it. I've named it Raw, like for raw spending. And notice I've got the first letter capitalized, but not the other 2 letters. So I could say, hey, spending by GDP. And, just some interesting things are about to happen here. Let's check them out together. Number 1 is notice that I have ranked this, but instead of ranking it from lowest to highest, the way I sort of technically should if I was doing this by hand, I've ranked from highest to lowest, and I've ranked on the basis of national spending, like percentage of GDP, but we are going to work with the unsorted data, the unranked data, and we're just going to work with raw spending, and that will not be a problem for Google Sheets or for Microsoft Excel for that matter. How did I establish my quartiles? I'm just going to pick quartiles here. I said equals 1 over 4, equals 2 over 4, equals 3 over 4. Those are going to be the dividing rods, where those rods go in my data. And so here comes the magic part. Okay, how do we establish where are the quartiles set? I'm going to put in equals PERCENTILE.EXC. That EXC means exclude the lowest value and the highest value. That kind of comes into play maybe for outliers. And there are some reasons why a lot of people like to put in the EXC. And it matters less and less the more data that you have. But at any rate, I'm going to put in percentage GDP, and it says, well, what data do you want me to look at? And I'm going to type in raw, the raw spending, and that comes from the named ranges. It's already there. And it says, okay, well, what percentile do you want? And I am just going to reference the value to the left at 0.25. And it says, hey, do you want me to fill in all this for you? And okay, well, there's a little bit of a formatting malfunction, but that's not a big deal. Okay, so what does this mean? What just happened? Well, I just split my national defense spending data into groups of 4. And it says, you know what, 25% of the nations on the list, at least 25%, spend less than $8.2 billion, or they spent less than $8.2 billion on national defense in the year 2023. At least 50% of your data values spent less than $17.45 billion in the year 2023, and at least 75% spent less than $49.625 billion. And we can go through this however we want, like using the quantile of choice. If I wanted to split it into deciles, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to say equals percentile.exe, and it says, what data do you want to work with? And I'm going to work, once again, with raw. Well, you know what? Just for the sake of it, this time I'm going to use GDP on a basis of GDP, and I'm going to reference the percentile that I've already set out, and it autofills for me. And once again, I've got a little bit of a formatting malfunction to fix. This tells me in terms of percentage of national spending, how these nations are spending or outlaying on national defense. At least 40% of the nations on this list spent less than 1.6% of their national economy's output on defense spending. That's what this is telling me. You can go in here, you can modify this, you can go with whatever data you want. We've used national defense data, but we encourage you to go and toggle around and have fun and put in your own data set. You can do that by linking to our file, and then it's going to be in share only. Go to File, make a copy, and then you can go around and play with this to your heart's content.